Veda leaned wearily against the granite kitchen island and glanced at the clock. 6:30 in the evening. The workday in finance had dragged on forever. The annual report required verifying every single figure, every decimal point. Unbelievable. Barely in her early 30s, yet she felt like she was 50, Veda thought to herself. A dull ache pressed against her temples. Columns of numbers flickered before her eyes, even when she closed her lids. "I have to make dinner," she thought, opening the stainless steel refrigerator. Inside, she found the chicken breasts she had taken out that morning to thaw, some tomatoes, carrots, an onion, and a bag of rice. Nothing complicated. Just an ordinary weeknight dinner for an ordinary family. Veda pulled out a cutting board, turned on the faucet, and began washing the vegetables. The mechanical movement soothed her, distracting her from thoughts of work. Sterling should be home in an hour. Her husband worked as a project manager at a construction firm, and lately his schedule had become unpredictable. Sometimes he stayed late at the site, other times he disappeared in the middle of the day, claiming a meeting outside the office. Veda didn't think much of it. Everyone had urgent deadlines and overtime. Azura, her 8-year-old daughter, was in her room. Usually the girl would greet her mom with happy shouts, stories about school, her friends, and her teacher, Ms. Williams. But today, just like the last 2 weeks, the little one had been strangely quiet. She had arrived home from school, said a silent hello, and went straight to her room. She's probably just tired, Veda thought as she seasoned the chicken. This semester is always the heaviest. Spring break is coming up soon. She'll get some rest. She put the skillet on the burner, poured in some oil, and heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned around. Azura was standing in the kitchen doorway in her fuzzy pink bathrobe. Barefoot, her braided hair a bit messy, face pale, with bluish shadows under her eyes. "Azura, baby, are you hungry?" Veda asked gently. "Come here. Help Mama set the table." The girl approached slowly and tugged at the hem of her mother's blouse. The movement was timid, unsure. "Mama." The voice was low, almost a whisper. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Veda turned off the burner and sat on a chair facing her daughter. Azura hesitated, twisting the edge of her robe. Then she lifted her eyes. In them, Veda read a plea mixed with fear. "Mama, can I stop taking the pills the lady gave me?" Veda froze. Dozens of thoughts raced instantly through her head. What lady? What pills? When? Why didn't she know anything about this? "What lady, Azura?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm so as not to scare the child. "And what pills?" "Well, Daddy's friend, the lady colleague. She comes when you're at work. She says they're vitamins to help me study better, but after I take them I get so sleepy. Then I wake up and it's already dark and my head hurts." Veda's heart began to beat faster. She felt the skin on her face go cold, the muscles in her neck tense up, but she couldn't show her fear to her daughter. She couldn't scare her. "Paulina, I mean, Azura," Veda said slowly, holding her daughter by the shoulders. "Bring me those pills, please. Show me the bottle." "It's in my room, in the desk drawer. The lady said it's a secret, that if I'm a good girl and take the vitamins, Daddy will give me money." "Go get it," Veda asked, trying to force a smile. Azura nodded and ran off. Veda stood up from the chair and leaned against the wall. Panic invaded her. Her thoughts were jumbled. What colleague? Sterling's company was mostly men. Who was this woman giving her child some kind of pills? And why did Azura fall asleep after taking them? The girl returned a minute later with a small plastic bottle in her hand. Veda took it and looked at the label. No identifying brand, just a white paper sticker with handwritten text. Vitamins. Inside were round white tablets. "Thank you, honey," Veda said, hiding the bottle in her pocket. "Go lie down for a bit in your room, watch some cartoons, and wash your hands. We'll eat soon. And don't take anything else, okay? Mama will handle these vitamins." Azura obediently went to her room. Veda pulled out her phone and quickly texted her friend, Dr. Zinnia, who worked at the urgent care clinic down the street. "Zinnia, I need urgent help. Can you check some pills?" Someone gave them to my daughter, said they were vitamins. I want to verify. I'll be there tomorrow morning. The reply came almost instantly. Come by at 8 before rounds start. We'll check them. Veda put the phone away and returned to the stove. The panic didn't leave her, but she had to make dinner. She had to behave as usual to not arouse suspicion. Suspicion from whom? From Sterling. She couldn't believe her husband knew about some pills for their daughter. Sterling loved Azura. He had always been an attentive father. He played with her, read her bedtime stories, helped her with homework. He couldn't consciously give the child something harmful. So, this woman was acting behind his back? The thought was terrifying, and Veda tried to push it away, but it kept coming back. It insisted on being in her head. What if Sterling knew about the pills? What if he was aware of who was coming to their house when Veda wasn't there? The apartment door opened, and Sterling appeared. Tall, athletic build, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. He was smiling broadly as always. "Hey, babe." He walked over and kissed Veda on the cheek. "Smells good. Chicken?" "Yeah," Veda replied briefly, not taking her eyes off the skillet. "Is Azura home?" Sterling asked, taking off his jacket. "She'll be out in a minute." Sterling went into the living room, and Veda heard him turn on the TV. A normal evening, a normal family, but something had shifted. Inside her, everything had tightened with anxiety. During dinner, Veda watched her husband and daughter in silence. Sterling joked, talked about work, asked Azura about school. The girl answered in monosyllables, picking at her rice with her fork without appetite. Sterling didn't notice her depressed state, or he pretended not to notice. "Why are you so sad, Azura?" he finally asked. "Maybe you need to take some vitamins? A colleague recommended some good ones for the immune system." Veda went still. She stopped chewing. She almost choked. Azura raised her eyes to her father, then looked at her mother. "No, Daddy, I don't want those vitamins anymore. Mama is going to buy me different ones," the girl said quietly. "Suit yourself." Sterling shrugged and continued eating. After dinner, Veda tucked her daughter in, sat by her side for a long time, and stroked her hair until Azura fell asleep. The girl slept restlessly, tossing and turning, murmuring something in her dreams. Veda left the child's room and closed the door behind her. Sterling was sitting in the living room, absorbed in his phone. Veda walked past him without a word and went to bed. But she didn't sleep. She lay with her eyes closed, listening as her husband brushed his teeth in the bathroom, as he lay down beside her, as his breathing became regular and deep within a few minutes. And she thought about the pills, about the unknown woman, about how tomorrow she would learn the truth. In the morning, Veda got up at 6, as always. She got Azura ready for school and walked her to the bus stop. The girl looked more animated than yesterday. She was even smiling. "Mama, are you really going to buy me different vitamins?" she asked before getting on the bus. "Of course, baby. Don't worry. Have a good day at school." Veda watched the bus leave and walked quickly toward the subway. The clinic was 3 stops away. Zinnia was already waiting for her at the entrance, wearing her white coat, her face concerned. "Show me what you have," she said instead of a greeting. Veda took out the bottle. Zinnia opened the lid, poured a pill into her palm, examined it closely, and smelled it. "These aren't vitamins," she said slowly. "Veda, I need to take this for analysis. I have a chemist friend in the next building. He'll check it right now." "What is it?" Veda whispered. "I don't know exactly, but I have a very bad feeling. Wait for me here." Zinnia left, taking the bottle. Veda remained standing in the clinic lobby, feeling her legs turn to jelly. People swarmed around her. Patients, doctors, nurses. Life went on, but inside her, everything was crumbling. 20 minutes later, Zinnia returned. Her face was pale. Veda grabbed her friend's arm. "It's a sedative, a strong psychotropic. It's prescribed to adults with severe sleep disorders. It is absolutely forbidden to give to a child. It can cause dependency, brain damage, developmental delays. Do you understand what this means?" Veda nodded, unable to speak. "Where did you get this? Who gave these pills to Azura?" Zinnia asked. I don't know. A woman. Azura said she's Daddy's colleague. She came when I wasn't home and gave my daughter these vitamins. Azura would fall asleep after taking them. Zinnia fell silent. Then she said firmly, Veda, you must find out who this woman is, and you must go to the police. It is a crime to give psychotropic substances to a child without a prescription. Your daughter could have suffered serious harm. I know, Veda replied. I'll do everything. Thank you, Zinnia. She left the clinic, took out her phone, and called work. She said she would be a couple of hours late. Then she called an Uber and went home. She needed to check something. The apartment was empty. Sterling had gone to work at 7. Veda went into Azura's room and opened the desk drawer where her daughter kept her school supplies. There, under the notebooks, were several bills. Veda counted them. $700. Where did an 8-year-old get that much money? School lunches were paid in advance. Veda and Sterling rarely gave pocket money. Maybe $5 or $10 for ice cream. $700 was way too much. Veda remembered her daughter's words. Daddy will give me money. So Sterling knew. He was aware of this nightmare and was paying Azura for her silence. No, it was impossible. She couldn't believe it. Veda took out her phone and started searching online for local spy shops. She needed proof. She needed to see everything with her own eyes. 3 days passed. 3 days during which Veda lived in 2 realities. Externally, everything was as usual. Work, home, dinner, conversations with her husband and daughter. But inside, fear, anger, and mistrust had taken root. They devoured her from within. On Monday morning, after that visit to Zinnia, Veda had stopped by an electronics store. The clerk, a young guy with a polite, rehearsed smile, showed her several models of hidden cameras. She chose the most discreet one, a miniature camera camouflaged as a phone charger. It could be plugged into an outlet in the living room, and no one would suspect a thing. Does the recording go to a memory card or the cloud? Veda asked. Both options, the clerk explained. You can watch the video in real time through an app on your phone or download the file. Excellent quality. Audio records clean too. Veda paid and went home. Sterling was at work. She installed the camera in the living room, aiming the lens so that the front door, the hallway, and part of the room were in the frame. She checked it through the app. Everything worked. The image was sharp, the sound recorded without interference. Now, all that was left was to wait. That same evening, Veda spoke to Azura. The girl was sitting at the table doing her math homework. Veda sat next to her and hugged the child around the shoulders. Azura, baby, I need to ask you something. What, Mama? The girl looked up from her notebook. Do you remember the lady who gave you the vitamins? What's her name? Azura thought, furrowing her brow. I don't remember. She didn't say. Daddy said she's his colleague, that they work on a project together. She comes often, 2 or 3 times a week, usually after lunch when I get home from school. Daddy opens the door for her. They say hi. Then the lady gives me a vitamin and says I need to sleep a little so I don't bother them while they work. I take the pill, lie on the couch, and fall asleep. And when I wake up, she's gone. And what does Daddy do when you sleep? I don't know, Mama. I'm sleeping. I guess he works with the lady. They sit at the computer, discuss something. Daddy said it's an important project. Veda nodded, trying to stay calm. Okay, sweetie, just don't take those vitamins anymore, okay? I bought you better ones. They're in the fridge. They look like gummy bears. Okay, Mama, I like gummy bears, Azura replied obediently and went back to her homework. Veda left the room and leaned against the hallway wall. 2 or 3 times a week. So this happened regularly. So it wasn't an accident. Who is this woman? Colleague. Oh. The thought was so obvious that Veda was surprised she hadn't reached it sooner. Mistress. Sterling had a mistress, and she came to their house while Veda wasn't there. And so the daughter wouldn't bother them. They drugged her. From the realization of this madness, Veda wanted to scream, break something, storm into the living room, and demand explanations from Sterling right now. But she couldn't. She needed evidence. She needed to record everything, so that later he couldn't wiggle out of it. Couldn't lie. couldn't destroy the proof. The next day, Tuesday, Veda called her mother, Grandma Eula. The woman was 63, living alone in a small house on the outskirts of the city, in a quiet neighborhood with old oak trees and gardens. After Veda's father passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack, Eula led a retired life, tending her garden, knitting, and reading. "Mama, I need your help," Veda said when her mother answered. "What happened, baby?" Concern filled Eula's voice. "I'll explain later. Can you pick Azura up from school this week, every day? Let her stay with you until the evening. I'll pick her up after work." "Of course I can, but what's wrong?" "I'll tell you later, Mama. I can't talk right now. Thank you so much." "Veda, you're scaring me." "Everything is fine. It will be fine. I promise." Veda hung up and exhaled. Now Azura would be safe. Now this woman couldn't give her any more pills, and the camera would record whatever happened in the apartment in the child's absence. On Wednesday, Grandma Eula picked up her granddaughter from school. Azura was happy. Grandma always baked pies and told interesting stories about her youth in the South. Veda told Sterling that her mother would be picking Azura up now, claiming the girl had started having trouble with her grades, and Grandma would help her with homework. Sterling didn't object. He even seemed pleased. "Great," Sterling said. "She's smart. She'll help Azura catch up." Veda looked at him and didn't understand. Was he lying, or did he really not know about the pills? Maybe he thought that woman just came to visit. But then, why did they meet during the day when Veda wasn't home? Why had he never told his wife about his colleague? On Thursday, sitting at work, Veda opened the camera app. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. On the screen, the living room was empty and silent. She switched to the archive and rewound the recording to the morning. Sterling had left for work at 7:30 as usual. Then the apartment was empty. At 11:30, the door opened and Sterling returned. He wasn't alone. Veda zoomed in on the image. Next to her husband was a young woman, maybe 25, tall, slim, wearing tight jeans and a cropped leather jacket. Long, dark hair loose over her shoulders, flashy makeup. She was laughing. She hugged Sterling around the waist. He leaned down and kissed her. Long, passionately. Veda felt everything tighten inside, felt her breath cut short. She knew she would see this. She had prepared herself, but it still hurt. It hurt morally and physically, as if someone had stabbed a knife under her ribs and slowly twisted the blade. They moved to the living room and sat on the couch. Sterling took out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. They drank, talked, laughed. Veda turned on the sound. "Azura went with her grandma, so we have the whole lunch break," Sterling was saying. "Veda won't be back until 7. "Good," the woman replied. "I missed you, Sterling. We haven't seen each other all week." "Me too. I'm sick of this situation. I want to be with you always, but I have to hide." "Soon everything will change." She kissed him on the neck. "You promised you'd get a divorce." "I promised, and I will. I just need time. I feel bad for Azura. She's still little. It's better for children when parents are happy separately than unhappy together," the woman pronounced in a lecturing tone. Veda turned off the video. She didn't have the strength to watch anymore. She locked her phone and sat staring at the office wall. Keyboards clicked around her. Colleagues discussed quarterly reports. Someone laughed by the water cooler. Life went on, and for her, everything had ended. No, it hadn't ended. She had to be strong for her daughter. Veda opened her browser and started searching for information on divorce, division of assets, and alimony. She read articles, studied information on lawyers in the city, looked at reviews. Then she called a law firm that was highly rated online and booked an appointment with a lawyer for Friday. On Friday afternoon, after work, she met with attorney Maxine Thorne, a woman in her 50s with a short, sharp haircut and the intelligent gaze of a successful jurist. "Tell me your situation," she proposed, seating Veda in an armchair across from her. Veda told her everything about the pills, the camera, the recording where her husband and his mistress discussed divorce. Maxine Thorne listened attentively, taking notes. When Veda finished, the lawyer thoughtfully tapped her pen on the desk. "We will solve this problem," she said. First, we must document the fact of giving psychotropic drugs to a minor. That is a criminal offense. Second, we must gather evidence of marital infidelity for the divorce proceedings. Third, we must prepare documents for the division of assets. What should I do? Veda asked. Continue recording everything with the camera. Save the recordings in multiple places, on a flash drive, in the cloud. Gather all receipts, bank statements, documents for the apartment, the car, everything you have. File a report with the police about the crime being committed against your minor child. The police will test the pills. They will interview the child. If everything is confirmed, they will initiate a criminal case. And my husband? Will he go to jail too? It depends on whether he knew about the pills or not. If they prove he knew and allowed them to be given to the child, yes, he will be liable. If not, he avoids punishment. But in any case, in the divorce, you can use the fact of infidelity and the dissipation of marital assets in your favor. I want him to pay for everything. Maxine Thorne nodded. Then, act according to the plan. Gather evidence. When you are ready, go to the police. I will help you with all legal matters. Veda left the lawyer's office with a clear goal. Now she knew what to do. Now she had a plan. On Saturday morning, Veda went to the bank and asked for printouts of all statements for accounts and cards for the last 6 months. Sitting at home, she carefully studied every line and found what she was looking for. Regular transfers to the account of a certain Portia Vance. $500, $700, $1,000 every week. Receipts from restaurants where Veda and Sterling had never been. Purchases at jewelry stores. A bracelet for $3,000, earrings for $1,500. A trip to a hotel in a neighboring city for a weekend when Sterling was supposedly at a corporate training. Veda kept everything in a separate folder. Statements, receipts, screenshots of transfers. There was enough proof. On Sunday, she checked the camera recordings again. During the week, Portia had come over 3 times. Each time the same thing. Wine, pizza delivery, conversations, kisses. In one of the recordings, Veda heard Sterling call this woman "my girl," promising her a trip to the beach, saying his wife didn't understand him or love him. Lies. All lies. Veda loved him, trusted him. But the most terrible thing was discovered in the recording from the day before Azura started going to Grandma's. Veda clicked the file and froze. On the screen, Sterling opens the door, lets Portia in. A few minutes later, Azura arrives from school. The girl greets her father and the strange lady. "Azura, come here." Portia kneels in front of the girl, smiling. "I brought you a vitamin. You're going to be healthy and smart." She pulls the small bottle from her purse, pours a pill into her palm. Azura takes it obediently, drinks it with water. "Good girl," Portia praises. "Now go lie on the couch, rest a little bit." Azura goes to her room. 10 minutes later, she returns drowsy, lies on the living room couch, and closes her eyes. She falls asleep almost instantly. Sterling and Portia look at the sleeping child. Then they look at each other and start kissing. Veda turned off the recording. She had asked Azura not to take pills from the woman, but the girl apparently forgot that first day after their conversation. But at least Veda saw everything with her own eyes. She saw how this woman deliberately drugged her daughter. She saw how Sterling stood by and did nothing. Maybe he really didn't know it was a sedative. Maybe Portia lied to him saying they were harmless vitamins. Or maybe he knew and agreed just so his daughter wouldn't bother him while he had fun with his mistress. On Monday morning, Veda went to the precinct. She took the bottle of pills, the flash drive with the camera recordings, and all the documents. The desk officer directed her to a detective, a middle-aged man with graying hair and the stern look of an experienced investigator. "I'm listening," he said, pointing to a chair. Veda told him everything about the pills, her husband's mistress, and how they were drugging Azura. The detective studied the documents carefully, watched clips of the video. "All right," he said. "We'll take the report. We'll run a lab test on the substance. We'll interview your daughter and everyone involved. If the facts are confirmed, we'll open a criminal case regarding harm to a minor." "How long will it take?" "A week or 2 for the lab work and interviews, then the decision to file charges." Is it possible? Veda hesitated, looking for words. Is it possible to do a sting operation, to catch them in the act when she gives the pill to my daughter? The detective thought, it's possible, but for that we need to know exactly when this woman will come again. She comes 2 or 3 times a week. Wednesday is almost certain. We'll organize a task force. You'll need to bring your daughter home that day after school and ask her to do what the detective says. Veda nodded. The plan was becoming reality. Wednesday turned out warm and sunny. The spring sky shone a clear blue. Buds were sprouting on the trees. The air smelled of damp earth and thaw. But Veda noticed none of this. She sat in her office watching the clock. 1:30. 1 more hour, and what she had prepared for all last week would begin. Yesterday evening, the detective called and explained the plan in detail. Azura must come home directly after school, not to Grandma's, but specifically home. Veda would tell Sterling she couldn't pick the child up. She would ask him to let Azura in. Sterling would most likely call Portia. Azura would have to enter the apartment and, in front of witnesses on camera, ask that woman for more vitamins. If Portia gave her a pill, at that moment the task force would enter the apartment. Caught red-handed, seizure of drugs, interrogation of all participants, forensics, everything by the book. Will she be able to do it? The detective asked. She's only 8. It might be stressful. She can, Veda replied firmly. I'll explain that it's important, that this way we'll protect her from bad people. Last night, when Sterling went to the store, Veda sat next to Azura and spoke carefully. Azura, do you remember the lady who gave you the vitamins? Azura nodded, frowning. Those vitamins turned out not to be vitamins, but medicine that kids aren't allowed to take. That's why you felt bad. Do you understand? I understand, Mama. I won't take them anymore. Right. But we need to make sure that Lady never gives those pills to other kids again. Tomorrow you'll come home after school, and if that lady is there, you'll go up to her and ask for more vitamins. You'll say you like them, and then police officers will come and take the lady away, and she won't hurt anyone else. Can you do that? Azura looked seriously at her mother. I can, Mama. I'm not scared. I know the police are good people. They protect us. Veda hugged her daughter, squeezed her tight. Her heart was breaking with pain and pride at the same time. Her little girl was so brave. Now, sitting in the office, Veda checked her phone. Message from the detective. Team in position, waiting for signal. Another message from Mama Eula. Everything will go well, baby. Veda dialed Sterling's number. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, honey, did something happen? Sterling, I'm sorry. My mom had some business to attend to. She can't pick up Azura today. Are you home? Can you let our daughter in after school? Yeah, I'm home, working remotely today. Of course, I'll let her in, don't worry. Thanks. I'll be home in the evening. I'll make dinner. Okay, see you tonight. Veda hung up and texted the detective. Everything according to plan. Husband is home. Now all that was left was to wait. The hardest part, waiting and not going crazy with nerves. At 2:30, a notification from the camera app hit her phone. Motion detected. Veda opened the video. On the screen, Sterling opens the door. Portia walks in. Just like in previous recordings. Tall, flashy, tight clothes. They hug, kiss. Azura will be here soon, Sterling says. Grandma couldn't pick her up. No problem, Portia replies, taking off her jacket. I'll give her vitamin, she'll sleep, and we'll be together. Are you sure those vitamins are harmless? My wife has been acting weird lately, asking Azura about some pills. Portia laughs. Sterling. They're normal kids' vitamins for the immune system. I bought them for my niece, too. Don't worry. Sterling shrugs. Well, it's just that Veda has become suspicious. Maybe she suspects us. Soon it won't matter anyway. You'll get divorced. We'll live together, just a little longer. Veda watched this shameless woman. So Sterling didn't know about the sedative. Portia tricked him, told him they were vitamins. He believed her, or didn't want to verify because it was more convenient that way. The apartment door opened, and Azura walked in. The girl held her backpack in her hands, looking calm. Veda held her breath. "Hi, Daddy." Azura greeted her father, then turned her gaze to Portia. "Hi, ma'am." "Hi, sweetie." Portia knelt in front of the girl, smiling. "How was school?" "Good. They gave us a lot of homework." "That's great. Go change, then we'll eat." Azura went to her room, dropped off her backpack, returned to the living room, sat on the couch, and looked at Portia. Veda saw her daughter take a breath, saw her clench her fists. Brave girl, her brave little girl. "Ma'am," Azura said quietly, "can I have more vitamins? I like them. I sleep good after taking them too." Portia lit up with a smile. "Of course, dear. I brought some right here. Here." She pulled the familiar bottle from her purse, poured a pill into her palm, and extended it to Azura. The girl took the pill, brought it to her mouth, and at that moment, the door burst open with a crash. 4 people in plain clothes stormed into the apartment, 3 men and a woman. "Police! Hands where we can see them! Nobody move!" Portia screamed. She went pale. Sterling stood frozen with his mouth open. Azura dropped the pill on the floor. The detective, the same man Veda had spoken to on Monday, walked quickly up to Portia, flashing his badge. "Portia Vance, you are under arrest on suspicion of committing a felony, causing harm to the health of a minor. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney." "What? What crime? I didn't do anything." Portia tried to pull away, but they held her firmly by the arms. "You gave a minor a psychotropic drug without a medical prescription," the detective continued calmly. "We have witnesses, we have video recordings. We are seizing the drugs now. Come with us." The female officer approached Azura, kneeling beside her. "Don't be scared, honey. You did everything right. Now this lady won't hurt anyone else." Azura nodded. Veda watched as her daughter held it together, trying not to cry. Strong. So strong. Sterling finally found his voice. "Wait, I don't understand what's happening. What psychotropic drugs? They're vitamins." The detective turned to him. "Sterling? Sterling, you will also need to come with us to give a statement. Were you aware that this woman was giving your daughter sedatives?" "Sedatives?" Sterling went pale. He looked at Portia. "You said they were vitamins." Sterling, I just wanted nobody to bother us. She only slept for a little while. Nothing serious." Portia tried to justify herself, but they were already leading her out of the apartment. The detective approached Azura, picked up the pill from the floor, put it in an evidence bag, then addressed the girl. "Azura, we'll need to ask you some questions, but not now, tomorrow, when your mom comes with us." "Okay," the girl replied quietly. "In the meantime, call your mom. Tell her it's over." Azura took out her phone and dialed. Veda answered instantly. "Mama, the police took her away, just like you said." "Good job, baby. You are so brave. I'm coming now. I'm coming to get you. Wait for me." Veda grabbed her purse and ran out of the office without saying goodbye to her colleagues. It was a 30-minute subway ride home. She ran through the streets, pushing past people without noticing anything around her, just to get there in time, just to hug her daughter, tell her everything is okay, that the danger has passed. When she burst into the apartment, Azura was sitting on the couch hugging a teddy bear. The officers were still processing paperwork, photographing the scene, seizing the bottle of pills. Veda ran to her daughter, hugged her, squeezed her as tight as she could. "That's it, my good girl. It's all over. You won't take those pills ever again." Azura buried her face in her mom's shoulder and finally cried softly, in broken sobs. Veda stroked her head, kissed her hair, whispered soothing words. The detective approached them. "Ms. Veda, tomorrow at 10 a.m., please come to the precinct with your daughter. We'll need to formalize the interview with a child psychologist present, take statements, okay?" "And my husband? Will you interrogate him too?" "We're taking him in for a statement now. Preliminarily, he claims he didn't know about the nature of the medication. He thought they were really vitamins. If we don't find proof that he was informed, he'll avoid criminal liability, but you can file a civil lawsuit against him." "I will," Veda said firmly. The officers finished their work and left. Veda was left alone with her daughter in the apartment. They had taken Sterling to the station. He wouldn't be back anytime soon. Veda made dinner, macaroni and cheese, Azura's favorite. They ate in silence, glancing at each other occasionally. Then Veda tucked her daughter in, read her the story of Cinderella, who went through all the trials and found happiness. Azura fell asleep to her mother's voice, calm and protected. Veda left the room and sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. She thought about what was next: divorce, division of assets, court, lawyers. It would be long and hard, but she would get through it. For her daughter, for herself. Sterling returned only at 11 at night. He entered the apartment silently, took off his shoes, walked into the kitchen. Veda was sitting at the table without looking up. "Veda," he began. "Don't," she interrupted coldly. "No explanations needed. I didn't know about the sedative, I swear. She said they were vitamins." "You cheated on me. You brought your mistress into our house. While I was working, you were having fun here, in our apartment, in our bed, and our daughter saw it all, and your mistress poisoned her." "Veda, forgive me. I didn't mean to. It just happened." "Nothing just happens, Sterling. You made a decision. Now I'm making mine. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce." Sterling slumped into the chair opposite, covered his face with his hands. "I ruined everything. I'm an idiot. I lost my family." "Yes, you lost it. And you will get everything you deserve in full, and I will make sure of that." They sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then Veda got up and went to the bedroom. She lay on the bed without undressing and stared at the ceiling for a long time. There were no tears, only emptiness and exhaustion. The next day, Veda and Azura went to the precinct. The investigator interviewed the girl in the presence of a psychologist. He asked how often Portia gave the pills, what she said when doing so, how the girl felt after taking them. Azura answered calmly in detail. The psychologist noted that the child was in a state of stress, but her psyche hadn't suffered critically. A week later, the lab results came back. The pills turned out to be a strong sedative from the benzodiazepine group, prescribed to adults, strictly contraindicated for children under 16. Regular intake could cause dependency, cognitive impairment, developmental delays. The detective called Veda and informed her, "Criminal proceedings have been initiated." Portia Vance confessed completely. She showed where she got the meds, bought them online without a prescription. The goal? To sedate the child to spend time with her lover. Her husband was questioned as a witness. He confirmed he didn't know about the nature of the drug. Vance deceived him, told him they were children's vitamins. He wouldn't face criminal charges, but could be subject to administrative liability for inadequate fulfillment of parental duties. And Portia? What awaits her? Considering the harm to the child's health wasn't severe, but the risk was serious, plus the fact she admitted guilt and repented. Around 3 years in prison. The sentence will be handed down in 2 or 3 months. Veda nodded. Justice would triumph. This woman would pay for what she did to Azura. Now remained dealing with Sterling. Veda sat in attorney Maxine Thorne's office, flipping through documents. In front of her was a stack of papers: divorce petition, inventory of marital assets, bank statements with transfer sums to Portia highlighted, receipts from restaurants and stores. There was enough proof of infidelity for the court to side with Veda. "The apartment is in both names?" Maxine Thorne clarified, reviewing the property deeds. "Yes, 3 bedrooms, bought with a mortgage 6 years ago, paid off completely. Market value is around $450,000. 1 car in Sterling's name, bought 4 years ago, worth about $30,000 now. Savings, deposits, $150,000 in joint money. Plus, I have a personal account with $30,000. That was money from selling my old car before the marriage." Maxine Thorne nodded, making notes. "Good. In the divorce, all assets acquired jointly are divided 50-50. We'll have to sell the apartment, split the money. Sell the car, or one spouse buys out the other's share. Savings split in half. Your personal deposit stays with you. It's not community property." "And the compensation?" Veda asked. "He spent our joint money on his mistress. Transfers, gifts, restaurants. I calculated everything from the last 6 months, around $35,000. "We will file a claim for dissipation of marital assets within the divorce suit. With such evidence, the court will grant it. He will be obligated to return half of the spent funds to you, $17,500, and the child, Azura, will stay with me without a doubt?" Considering the circumstances, the father's infidelity, the fact that the child was exposed to danger in his presence, even if he didn't know about the sedative, the court will definitely determine the child lives with you. Sterling will pay child support and will have the right to see the child according to an agreed schedule. Veda exhaled. Everything was going according to plan. Terrible, painful, but according to plan. "When do we file?" "I've prepared all the documents. We can file tomorrow. The first hearing will be scheduled in about a month. Considering your husband will hardly object to the fact of infidelity and the asset division, the process will take 2 or 3 months max." "Good. File it." The next day, the divorce petition was filed in the district court. Sterling was served the summons a week later. He came home gloomy, holding an envelope. He walked silently into the kitchen where Veda was making dinner. "So you decided anyway," he said quietly, dropping the documents on the table. "Yes, I decided." "I thought you were joking, Veda. Maybe we can still fix everything. I cut all ties with Portia. I'll be a model husband." Veda turned to him, and in her eyes, he saw so much coldness and contempt that he fell silent. "You deceived me. You brought your mistress into our house. Our daughter saw a strange woman acting like she owned our apartment. Azura was being poisoned with sedatives while you had fun. You spent our money we were saving for vacations, for our daughter's college fund, on your mistress. And you think everything can be fixed? I didn't know about the sedative. How many times do I have to repeat it? You didn't want to know, because it was convenient for you. Convenient that the kid slept and didn't bother you. You didn't even ask what those pills were, where they were from. You didn't care." Sterling lowered his head. "I really thought they were vitamins. Portia said they were for the immune system." "So you trusted a strange woman unconditionally, without even verifying what the pills were. That says a lot." They stood in silence. Then Sterling took the envelope and went to the bedroom. Veda went back to the stove, but the stress was taking its toll. She couldn't force herself to keep cooking. In late May, the first court hearing took place. Veda came with her lawyer, Sterling with his, a young man with glasses who didn't look very confident. The judge, a stern woman in her mid-50s, studied the case materials closely. "Mr. Sterling, do you admit to the fact of marital infidelity?" she asked. Sterling stood up. "I admit it, Your Honor." "Do you agree with the division of assets in equal parts?" "I agree." "Do you object to the claim for compensation for funds spent on third parties?" Sterling looked at his lawyer. He shrugged. "I do not object." "Good. On the question of determining the minor's place of residence, what is your position?" "I agree that my daughter should live with her mother. I request visitation rights every weekend." Veda stood up. "Your Honor, I object to weekly visits. I request a schedule of twice a month on Sundays during the day. Considering the circumstances of the case, I believe the child needs time to recover psychologically." The judge nodded. "I will take your position into account. Hearing adjourned for 2 weeks." The next hearing, June 10th, the court issued the judgment. Dissolve the marriage, sell the apartment, divide the proceeds equally, transfer the car to Sterling with a compensation payment to Veda of half its value. Divide savings in half. Judgment against Sterling in favor of Veda for $17,500 as compensation for dissipated assets. Azura's primary residence with the mother. Visitation with the father twice a month, Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The judgment became final a month later. During this time, Veda found a buyer for the apartment, a young family with 2 kids. They agreed on $440,000. Each of them walked away with $220,000. In mid-July, Veda and Azura moved in with Grandma Eula. Grandma's house was on the edge of town, a 2-story place with an attic, a small garden, and a vegetable patch. Azura was given a room on the 2nd floor with windows facing the apple trees. The girl was happy with the move. It was quiet here. It smelled of herbs and fresh bread that Grandma baked. "Baby, y'all can live here as long as you want," Eula said, pouring tea. "There's plenty of room, and I'm happy to have you." "Thanks, Mama. But it's temporary. I'll find my own place. We need our space." Veda started looking for housing. She considered 2-bedroom condos in different neighborhoods. She wanted to find something close to Azura's school so the commute would be easy. In late August, she found a suitable option. A 2-bedroom condo, 900 square feet, 5th floor, recently renovated, good neighborhood infrastructure. Price, $200,000. Bargained down to $190,000. She closed the deal in early September. Moving into their own apartment was joyful. Azura helped unpack boxes, arrange books on shelves, hang curtains. They bought new furniture, a sleeper sofa for the living room, a separate bed for Azura. They furnished the kitchen simply but cozily. Potted flowers appeared on the windowsills. "Mama, can we get a puppy?" Azura asked one evening while they were watching a movie together. Veda thought, a dog is responsibility, expenses, time for walks. But on the other hand, Azura needed a friend. After everything that happened, the girl had become withdrawn. She stopped talking to classmates, would come home from school and stay in. A dog could help her open up. "Which one would you like? A spaniel or a retriever?" "Big kind. Okay, we'll look at the shelter. There are lots of dogs waiting for owners there." That weekend, they went to the animal shelter across town. It was noisy. Dozens of dogs of different breeds and sizes were barking. The shelter worker, a woman in denim overalls, led them past the cages, telling stories about the residents. And then, in one of the pens, Azura saw him. A medium-sized brown dog with floppy ears and kind eyes sat in the corner with his muzzle on his paws. Breed, Cocker Spaniel mix. Age, 3 years. "What's his name?" Azura asked. "Roscoe. His owner moved overseas and couldn't take the dog. Roscoe is very obedient, affectionate, loves kids." Azura opened the gate and knelt in front of the dog. Roscoe lifted his head, sniffed her hand, then carefully licked it. The girl laughed. For the first time in months, Veda heard that crystal-clear laughter. "Mama, can I keep him? Please?" Of course. They took Roscoe home that same day. Bought a collar, leash, bowls, food, a bed. At home, Roscoe sniffed every corner. Then he lay down at Azura's feet and closed his eyes happily. He had found his family, and they had found him. Life began to improve. Veda went back to work after taking some time off. Azura started 3rd grade. The girl made friends with a classmate, Keisha. Together they did homework, walked Roscoe in the courtyard. Gradually, Azura became her old self, cheerful, open, curious. Sterling called occasionally, asking to see his daughter. Veda didn't object. According to the court order, twice a month. Azura went to see him reluctantly. She said Daddy was sad often, that he now lived in a small apartment on the outskirts, that he didn't have a nice car anymore. Veda didn't feel pity. He had chosen that path himself. In October, Veda learned that Portia had been sentenced to 3 years in a minimum security prison. The sentence was handed down quickly. Portia fully admitted guilt, repented, asked for leniency, but the court was strict. She knowingly gave a child a dangerous drug, risking the minor's health for personal interests. 3 years. Veda felt satisfaction. Justice had triumphed. Time passed. Autumn turned into spring, spring into summer. A year had passed since Veda learned the truth, a year that changed everything. But she overcame it. She and Azura overcame it. Late that summer, on a warm August evening, Veda was walking Roscoe in the park near their house. The dog ran happily on the grass, chasing birds. Veda walked slowly, enjoying the peace. She felt good for the first time in a long while. "Roscoe, come!" She called him when the dog wandered too far. Roscoe didn't react. He ran toward another dog, a beautiful large husky with gray and white fur and blue eyes. The dogs sniffed each other and started to play. "Luna, don't scare the other dogs," a male voice was heard. Veda looked up. Walking toward her was a man of about 35 in a track jacket and jeans, handsome, with a nice smile. "Excuse me, she's too friendly," he said, approaching. "No problem. Mine doesn't mind socializing either," Veda replied, smiling. "Beautiful dog. Husky?" "Yeah, her name's Luna, 2 years old, energy to spare. Yours is a spaniel?" "Mix. His name is Roscoe." They started talking. Turned out the man's name was Emrys. He lived in the building next door, worked as a civil engineer. Divorced, no kids. Adopted Luna a year ago. Since then, he walked in this park every evening. "Strange we haven't met before," Emrys noted. "I moved to this neighborhood only a year ago." "I see. Do you walk here often?" "Every evening. Roscoe needs walks. He's active." "Maybe we walk together? The dogs have more fun, and we won't be bored." Veda thought, why not? He seemed like a nice person. Just walks, nothing more. "Okay," she agreed. Since that evening, they started meeting in the park regularly. They walked, talked about work, life, dogs. Emrys turned out to be an interesting conversationalist, educated, with a sense of humor, attentive. Veda felt herself gradually thawing, learning to trust again. 2 months later, Emrys invited her for coffee. They sat at a table, drank coffee, talked about everything. When he walked her home, he held her hand. Veda didn't pull away. Another half-year passed. Spring returned to the city, bringing warmth, blooming, and a sense of renewal. Veda stood by the window of her apartment, looking at the trees blooming in the courtyard. Azura was doing homework at the table. Roscoe dozed in his bed. An ordinary, quiet, happy evening. In those months, a lot had changed. The relationship with Emrys developed slowly, without haste or pressure. They saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, walked, went to the movies, the theater. He met Azura. The girl was cautious with him at first, but gradually got used to him. Emrys didn't try to replace her father, didn't impose himself. He was simply nearby, kind and attentive. Their first outing together was to the amusement park. Emrys invited Veda and her daughter to ride the rides. Azura remained tense. She answered his questions in monosyllables. But when they approached the carousel with the horses, the girl's eyes lit up. Emrys noticed and suggested they ride together. They sat on neighboring horses. And when the carousel started spinning, Azura laughed for real for the first time in ages. Veda stood to the side and felt her soul rejoice. Her daughter was laughing again. After that day, Azura started opening up to Emrys gradually. They discussed favorite books. The girl loved adventure stories about travelers and explorers. Emrys told her about his engineering work, showed her blueprints, explained how bridges and buildings are built. Azura listened with interest, asked questions. Common topics of conversation appeared between them. "Mama, I finished math," Azura announced, closing her notebook. "Can I go walk Roscoe?" "Of course, go ahead. Just not too long. It'll start getting dark in an hour." Azura put on her jacket, clipped the leash to Roscoe's collar, and ran out of the apartment. The dog wagged his tail happily, anticipating the walk. Veda watched her go and smiled. Her daughter was happy. That was the most important thing. The phone rang. Emrys. "Hey, how are you?" "Good. Azura is out walking. I'm home." "Listen, I wanted to talk to you. Talk seriously. Can I come over now?" There was a special note in his voice. Veda felt nervous. "Of course. Come over." Emrys appeared 20 minutes later. He said hello, walked into the kitchen, sat at the table. Veda poured tea, sat opposite. He looked at her seriously, thoughtfully. "Veda, we've been seeing each other for 8 months," he began, "and I understood that I want to be with you, not just date, but live together, build a family." Veda's heart began to beat faster. She expected this conversation, but was still nervous. Emrys, wait, let me finish. I have a 3-story house in the suburbs, in a good neighborhood. I bought it 2 years ago after the divorce. There's lots of space, a yard, a garage. Move in with me, you and Azura. Let's live together. I want you to be my wife." Veda fell silent. The proposal was unexpected, although she understood it would lead to this sooner or later. "And Azura? Are you ready to accept her as your own?" "Ready. I've become very attached to her. She's a smart, kind girl, and I'll do everything to make her happy. I need to think and talk to Azura. It's an important decision." "Of course. Think. I'll wait." He left, and Veda sat in the kitchen, hugging the cup of cold tea. To get married, to trust a man again, to let someone into her life, into her daughter's life again. It was scary, but Emrys was different. He was honest, reliable, loving, and Azura got along well with him. She remembered how a few months ago Azura got a cold. Her fever spiked to 102. The girl lay pale, weak. Veda called the doctor, sat next to her daughter, applied compresses. Emrys found out and came running with medicine from the pharmacy, fruits, and a stuffed toy, a rabbit. He sat next to Azura, read her stories out loud until she fell asleep, and then helped Veda with cleaning, made dinner, didn't let her collapse from exhaustion. Those things aren't forgotten. Actions like that speak more about a person than any words. In the evening, when the girl returned from her walk, Veda called her to the kitchen. They sat together, and Veda asked carefully, "Azura, do you like Emrys?" The girl nodded. "Yeah, he's nice." "Would you like us to live together? Me, you, Emrys," Azura thought, furrowing her brow. "And where would we live?" "He has a big house with a yard. Would you like that?" "And Roscoe will go with us?" "Of course. Roscoe and Luna will be friends." Azura smiled. "Then it's okay. I agree, Mama. Emrys is kind. He doesn't yell, doesn't lie. I feel safe with him." Veda hugged her daughter, squeezed her tight. The decision was made. The next day she called Emrys. "I accept, and Azura does too. We'll move in with you." "Really?" There was so much joy in his voice that Veda smiled. "Really, but not immediately. It takes time to organize everything." "Of course, take all the time you need." The move happened in early June. Emrys's house turned out even better than Veda imagined. Spacious, bright, with large windows and high ceilings. On the first floor, living room, kitchen, study. On the second, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. On the third, an attic that could be repurposed for anything. Azura was given the biggest room on the second floor with a view of the garden. The girl was delighted. She ran around the house, exploring every corner, rejoicing in the space and novelty. Roscoe also adapted quickly, became friends with Luna. Now they ran around the yard together, chasing each other. Emrys built a spacious pen with a roof for the dogs, put out large bowls, hung toys. The animals were happy. In the garden, apple trees, cherries, and plums grew. Emrys showed Azura how to care for the trees, how to water the vegetable beds. The girl enthusiastically set about helping. Every morning she ran to the garden, checked how the tomatoes and cucumbers were growing, watered the flowers. A new hobby appeared, and Veda was happy watching her daughter bloom. In July, Veda and Emrys got married modestly at the courthouse in the presence of Azura and Grandma Eula. No lavish celebrations, just a signature on a license and the certainty that they were now family. After the ceremony, they went to a restaurant, celebrated the event with a family lunch. Azura gave Emrys a drawing. In it was depicted their new family: Veda, Emrys, Azura, 2 dogs, and the house surrounded by flowers. Emrys looked at the drawing for a long time, then hugged the girl and said, "Thank you. It's the best gift of my life." Life became peaceful and happy. Emrys turned out to be a wonderful husband, attentive, caring, reliable. He helped Azura with homework, drove her to and picked her up from school, played board games with her, read at night. The girl blossomed, became confident, cheerful. Her grades improved. New friends appeared. The teacher noted at the parent-teacher conference that Azura